Welcome everyone. I'm Councillor Susie Horton. I'm the Deputy Leader of the Council and the Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Education. And I'll be chairing this meeting today as the Leader of the Council, Councillor Joe Jackson, is shielding as his husband has current health issues. Please be assured that we've put appropriate cleansing and social distancing measures in place to ensure that this meeting is undertaken in a COVID secure manner. Limited public seating has been made available. However, this meeting is also being webcast to allow the public to attend remotely if they wish to do so, and the public seating area is not in view of the camera. Please, can I ask members and officers to remain seated throughout the duration of the meeting and to wear a face covering unless seated. A little bit of housekeeping, safety information. If there are continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Don't attempt to use the lifts, and please assemble at the turning circle at the end of King Henry Street past the university's car park whilst the ice rink is still there, although I see it's being dismantled at the moment. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust's fire marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. Can everyone speak via microphone, and you will be on camera, including those making deputations, although I don't think we have any deputations today. Members of the press and public also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. Please can everyone use the microphones, remember to switch them off when they've finished. We have all read the report, so officers, please just highlight any developments that have occurred since publication and focus on the highlights. Just before we start, I'd like to remind you that the Cabinet meeting scheduled for the 1st of February has been moved to the 8th of February. So that is the introduction. So I'll now do introductions round the room. I shall start here.
Peter, City Solicitor.
Good afternoon, Chris Atwell, the Cabinet Member for Communities and Central Services.
Dave Ashmore, Cabinet Member for Community Safety and Environment.
Councillor Jason Zackley, Cabinet Member for Health, Wellbeing and Adult Social Care.
Councillor Darren Sanders, Cabinet Member for Housing and Preventing Homelessness.
Good afternoon, Ben Dowling, Cabinet Member for Culture, Leisure and Economic Development.
Councillor Lynn Stagg, Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation.
Councillor Kimberly Barrett, Cabinet Member for Climate Change and the Green Recovery.
Sarah Daly, Director of Children's Services.
Richard Locke, Procurement Manager.
Natasha Edmonds, Director of Corporate Services.
Paddy May, Corporate Strategy Manager.
Andy Biddle, Director of Adult Social Care.
Jane Dodino, Local Democracy Officer.
Julian Pike, Deputy Director of Finance.
David Williams, Chief Executive.
Welcome everyone. The first agenda item is apologies for absence. We, as well as Councillor Joe Jackson, we also have Councillor Hugh Mason, who is taking his wife to the airport, and I think it's got delayed. So item 2 is declarations of interest. Has anyone got any declarations of interest? Can't see any, so straight on to agenda item number 3, winter pressures in the NHS system, which I think is a paper that was asked for by the leader, and I'll hand over to Andy Biddle.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning all. So the paper was in response to the leader's request to update Cabinet on the pressures at Portsmouth Hospitals University Trust, and to provide assurance that the Council is supporting the NHS during this winter period, 21-22. The paper outlines the mechanism by which Health and Social Care works around the acute footprint for Queen Alexandra and the rough geographical split of citizens that QA will see, a third Portsmouth and 2/3 Hampshire. And the paper then outlines the commitments to system working and focuses on the shared teams that the local authority has with the NHS, and that includes shared senior management responsibility and accountability for discharge from the acute trust and flow through the acute trust and into the community. And it also itemises the regular meetings that we hold with NHS colleagues to ensure that we are working with the system to iron out any issues that arise and to escalate any points of delay for people coming out of hospital. Section 5 sets out some of the current challenges we have for health and care, the impact that this can have on the occupancy in the acute hospital, and the resultant challenges to our ambulance trust, SCAS. And the section then sets out the 3 principles and 5 actions of the plan that was formulated in November of last year to deal with the ambulance holds challenge, which prior to the Omicron wave that we've seen since the end of November was the deemed to be the most serious challenge to the acute hospital. Section 6 then outlines the governance around those arrangements in line with the leader's request, and Section 7 sets out the risks that remain in the current environment around recruitment, care availability, the criteria for discharge, pay, and the usual winter pressures. Since this paper was drafted, modelling around the impact of the Omicron variant has developed from last week of November onwards. And the NHS and local authorities have been asked to maximise discharge from all hospitals across the country and maximise the availability of care in the community, either through care in people's homes or via the increasing number of beds in care facilities outside of hospitals. That's come through a series of letters from the NHS central organisation, and we've also seen letters from the UK Health Security Agency, previously Public Health, and the Chief Social Worker. And that's anticipated to be in development and planning for the anticipated wave of hospital admissions due to the Omicron variant spreading. So in Portsmouth, we've seen both our colleagues in Solent NHS Trust and Adult Social Care for the Council create some extra beds, though staffing continues to be a significant challenge, and not only in terms of those staff that may be unwell due to Omicron or other reasons, but also because we had, I think, as I've probably highlighted before, fairly serious staffing challenges before we saw the advent of Omicron in terms of people choosing to work in different sectors, other more advantageous terms and conditions deals, those kind of things. At the Hampshire and Isle of Wight level, we're also hearing at the moment about the NHS exploring care hotels for people to be discharged from hospital. That's the concept of a standard hotel with some care staff working in it that then provide so many calls per day to the people staying there whilst they're waiting to make their onward journey, if you like. We continue to work in partnership with our NHS colleagues at all levels to maximise alternatives to conveyance and admission, because we all acknowledge that the best environment for people to receive care and support is in their own home. So the key really is if we can help someone have an alternative in the community rather than make that journey to hospital, then that's a win-win for us all, I think, if that's possible. So that's a summary of the paper and a summary of the situation we now find ourselves in, but happy as always to take any questions.
Many thanks, Andy. Does anyone want to make any comments or ask any questions? Councillor Sanders.
Yes, thanks for that, Susie, and thank you, Andy, for the report, and Gerald for asking the report. Both he and I have had the misfortune of experiencing the delays at QA and the ambulance delays at QA, and it's not anybody's fault, but it's a perfect storm. It's a perfect storm of NHS staff who are exhausted in many cases when they're not off, partly through exhaustion, partly because some people have had the virus, and an increasing Omicron wave, which all the government figures do not include the people who are most likely to go into hospital, which is the over 50s, and the people who are most likely to suffer. So it's the not knowing. It's that perfect storm. And that's why I think Gerald is right to put in place a public report to explain the situation so the city knows, but also what we as a council are doing to support an NHS that is frankly on its knees as a result of all this. So I'm delighted this report has happened. I know that the team will continue to support our ambulance service and our NHS through what is a very difficult time, partly because they don't know what's coming. And I'm sure that all of us will support the team, both teams, in what needs to happen. But I'm delighted this report is here. It's a pain for every single person who's experienced this, and it's really damaging. And I hope that the government will be able to publish figures that will include the over 50s, which they've not been able to do now as far as Omicron is concerned, because that is where the pinch point lies. That is where our health service could be overwhelmed, and that is not something any of us want. So I think I'm delighted, Susie, that Gerald's put this report together, or asked for this report to be put together, and I hope all of us will continue to support our social care team and our health service in navigating the city through what is a really, really difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I don't wish to spend too much time because in reality it's just duplicating what already has been said. I mean, the report's fairly comprehensive, it's quite clear in what it lays out. And I don't think there are many people that aren't aware of the situation that's currently facing the NHS, and indeed has done so for some months now. Well, 2 years into the pandemic we are. Difficulty is, of course, we never really know what's around the corner, as Andy rightly touched on during his presentation earlier. While the report's being drawn up, Omicron comes to the fore, and we're now witnessing the effects of that. So it is difficult for the NHS, as indeed it is for many other businesses and organisations and services across the UK. But I think it's right the report came forward. It gives the people the opportunity to have an update of the current situation. But it will change, no doubt, I'm sure. Hopefully not for the worst. But it's a sad situation we're in at the moment. But anyway, I could waffle on forever, but no, I just, as Darren said, I welcome the report, and thank you, Andy, for the presentation and time in doing it.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to add to that? I think I just want to obviously echo what's been said, but there's a lot of people in this room who've had direct experience of the NHS over the last or recent months, and I think when you experience it on a personal level, that kind of gives meaning to some of the words we get used to saying, don't we, that the NHS is under pressure and it's on its knees, but when it's actually your nearest and dearest, as we know, it really brings it home. And, you know, we're obviously concerned about those as well as all our residents. And the final word, I think, is just to say thank you to everyone working in the NHS, in care homes and in sheltered accommodation, because quite frankly, they are amazing and they're working in extraordinary circumstances and have done for a long time now. So, yes, very good report. Thank you very much, Andy. Okay, so the next item on the agenda, item 4, is Portsmouth support for asylum seekers. And who is presenting this? Oh, sorry. Paddy, over to you.
Thank you. So this report is for information only. It provides an update on the various national schemes that Portsmouth is involved with in terms of supporting asylum seekers and people resettling into the UK via the government schemes. It's quite a complex picture nationally with a variety of different schemes covering a number of different countries, and I think it's fair to say the Council is doing an awful lot to support individuals through most of these schemes, which is good. The report looks at the two schemes that have been set up for Afghanistan, the ARAP scheme which supports locally employed staff, where Portsmouth is supporting people using MOD properties within the city. The other scheme, which is the Afghan Citizen Resettlement Scheme, there's sort of some people that were resettled with the emergency evacuation in the summer, but there's been quite a lot of stuff in the national media about the scheme not being open yet, apart from the emergency evacuation. The report also looked at the Hong Kong British National Overseas Scheme, which started a year ago. It's not yet clear how many people will take advantage of this scheme or where they'll settle. It's expected they're likely to go where there are existing Hong Kong communities. We've already had some people in Portsmouth who have taken part in some language training that we've provided through the Council. The report then looked at the National Dispersal Scheme, which Portsmouth generally has supported, although the South East region overall has been sort of like fairly poor in terms of its support, but Portsmouth is one of the 3 authorities that has been supporting people through the scheme. Nationally, the aim is to rebalance that over the next 10 years. In terms of unaccompanied children, the new mandated scheme should put less pressure on PCC, but the issue there is around the costs for care leavers going forward, and that's something that the Council has already made some representation on. Finally, the community sponsorship scheme sits alongside the UK resettlement scheme, but is about local community support, supporting individuals. The first case is likely to happen in Portsmouth early this year, which again is a positive thing. Finally, the report talks about coordination. Regionally, that's done through the South East Strategic Partnership for Migration, and within the Council we're looking to create a PCC officer group to coordinate this, because as I said, it is quite a complicated bit and it does impact on a variety of different directorates, and it's important we do try to make sure we're coordinating what support is required. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paddy. Does anyone have any questions or comments they want to make? Councillor Lindstag.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased to see that Portsmouth is continuing a long history of supporting refugees, and in a former life as a teacher, I've taught many refugees that the City Council has supported, but also the people of Portsmouth. I've taught children from Sri Lanka who are being hassled by the Tamil Tigers to take part. These are young 13, 14-year-olds, and in fact, in 2 cases, the fathers had been killed because they had refused to allow them to join. I've taught Zimbabweans whose land had been taken from them by the powers that were ruling the place at the time. Bosnia, I had one child in particular who was coming home from school, fired upon by the opposition, and his best friend was killed in his arms as they were hiding behind some piles of rubbish. And several children from Kurdish children from Iraq who had lost loads of family members as a result of Saddam Hussein's activities. The one thing that stands out in my mind, although this is before my time, even though I'm really old, this is even before my time, 1834, there was, I only discovered this when I was Lord Mayor, and there was a ship, there were 4 ships actually who left Poland in 1834. They were mainly soldiers, and they hit terribly bad weather. They were on their way to America, and one ship, the Marianne, came to Portsmouth, and because of the horrendous weather, they stayed. And the people of Portsmouth, en masse, supported them. They provided them with food, with shelter, with clothes, and they even found them jobs. And there's a section of Kingston Cemetery which has got the graves of these people, you know, and they're really well supported by the people of Portsmouth. So I'm really pleased to hear that we're doing so much, still doing so much, and particularly with the Afghan people, because they have risked their lives for the troops of this country. So, you know, for them to be taken under our wing and supported in the way they have been supported. I mean, these are just some of a few. But that in particular really appeals to me, and I'm very proud that the city is doing this sort of thing. So thank you, Paddy, for your report. It's great to know it's carrying on. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Any other comments or questions? No, I just want to say that I welcome Lynn's stories there, because you know it really brings home the kind of the richness that people bring to, and when we welcome them to the city. But also on a more practical level, I think having a PCC officer group to represent the different areas of the council and pull that together, particularly when a lot of the issues are within one family, is really a very sensible move forward. So thank you very much, Paddy, for this report. So we go on to the next item, number 5, which is the social value implementation, and over to Natasha to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you. The report is at the request of Councillor Atwell, who is the Cabinet Lead for Social Value, and it's to provide an update on the activity that has taken place over the last nearly a year since the Council recognised the need to have a slightly more structured approach to how we deliver social value in the city through our contracting and commissioning activity. It also was an opportunity to recognise all of the work that currently goes on across the board in how we do business. So it provides an update of some of the achievements that we've had in terms of recognising good practice, but also providing and developing toolkits for how we engage with the local community and the business community to drive social value through all of our activities. We've had quite a good level of success in developing toolkits and engaging with the local business community, with quite a few commitments being made by the business community following that engagement, but there's a lot more work to do going forward. So we have a plan to develop our activities further over the coming months, starting with an event in February where we're hoping to showcase some of the work that's already been undertaken, but also the very real impact that the social value policy is having in terms of the benefit to the city from some of that work. I think that's probably all I could say on the work, but there's plenty more to come over the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. I'm imagining Chris wants to speak on this.
Churlish not to. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you for the report. We have achieved quite a lot, I think, in the context of COVID over the last, as you say, almost year. Social value is really important. Thank you to everyone who's worked on it. The two people I perhaps want to extend personal thanks that are in the room, actually, Natasha and to Richard as well, procurement manager, for, I remember our early conversations about this, and thank you for getting it, thank you for understanding the mission, which was to develop something that's specific to Portsmouth, that is led by our heart, and that really benefits its recipients. And I think I think we've done a lot along that path, so thank you to you too. I know there are other people, but we wouldn't be where we are without your commitment and energy to it. Thank you for mentioning the event on the 17th of February, where we'll sort of launch this as something that is very specific to Portsmouth, perhaps the Portsmouth model. Should we call it that? I don't know. It's a good idea, isn't it? I don't know. It trips off the tongue. So thank you. So thank you to the leader and deputy leader and other cabinet colleagues for coming along to that. To the contractors that will be coming along, to officers who will be presenting, and most importantly to the recipients. We have people who are actually benefiting in a meaningful way. I always want things that happen in my portfolio to be meaningful. This is a meaningful policy that will really help people across the city. So thank you very much. Thank you for the report. Looking forward to the 17th of February and finding out what happens next for social value in Portsmouth. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Does anyone else? Darren.
Thanks, Susie, and also thanks to Chris for giving people the chance to see what has been done. You're absolutely right, there's a lot. This is one of the key planks of getting Portsmouth out of the pandemic and creating the sort of city that we as Liberal Democrats want to see, where communities are more in charge, whereby the state tells people less what they should do and rather work with them to make their lives better. That's why things like the carbon budget are important, so we can make sure our children and our grandchildren actually live in a sustainable environment, and this is one of the other key parts to generate a kinder, fairer and greener city. And I don't think we should be unambitious, and I think you're right to say we should be ambitious and generate the Portsmouth model. There's been a lot of discussion around other models in other parts of the country, but we have a chance to do things differently that is less around councils telling people what they should be doing and more working with people to see what can be done. I'm delighted to see the number of contracts within my own portfolio that are in here, and it means employing local people. About half of one contract that is installing fibre in council blocks to bridge the digital divide, because so many poor people just don't have access to laptops, frankly, are employing people in the PO1 to PO7 postcodes. And it's about how we embed that and how we encourage the rest of the city to follow our example. Because I think if they do that and the private sector does that, then we can have the kinder, fairer and greener city that we all want and we all need once we get out of this pandemic, whenever that may be. So I'm delighted that, Chris, you've put it forward, and Susie, thank you for giving me the time to make some comments about it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Comments or questions? No, just from me, I'm very excited about this. For someone who did a degree in ethics, it makes me very excited. But I also know the issue of trying to take a normative word such as values and then actually making it meaningful. And so what I love about this are the examples, and also I'm very much looking forward to the showcase event, because I think once people get to see what it looks like, there'll be a better understanding about the policy, and the fact that it can underpin everything we're doing across the council is even more exciting. So thank you very much, Natasha, for the report, and for Chris for bringing it here. And if there are no other questions or comments, I think that brings us to the end of this agenda and this meeting, where the three reports are all noted by the Cabinet. Yes? Yes. Thank you, everyone.